Hello again, folks. It's Barry with Barry's 8-Track and Classic Car Radio Repair. And say hello to my favorite cat, Einstein, who's monitoring my performance reviews coming up in a couple weeks. So she's keeping a pretty close eye on my activities, making sure I come in on time, don't call in sick, stuff like that. This is going to be a little bit different video than I'm used to doing because for this video we're only focusing on the tuner push buttons, which on this model, if you have a 69 Cougar or Mustang, you're probably very familiar with this model. And most of them come in with one or more of the tuner buttons broken off. And before I go to now, these are brand new. These are ones that I just made, and that's the subject of this video. But before I brag about my skill, let's go ahead and take a look at these original push buttons. I can just give you a little side view here of a, and then here's one of the original tuner buttons. And what this does is this just slides onto that shaft, and then there's one-way barbs that prevent it from being pulled back off for when you want to pull it out to set the stations. Well, there's some trouble with this design. It's really thin. It breaks very easily. I can even bend it a little bit here. They did a nice job of including some structural ribbing, molded into the plastic, which gives it a little bit more strength. But where these things always break, well, for one thing, first let's talk about this silly design. As you can see, the part that you push on is at the very bottom of this part that ultimately slides onto the shaft. Well, what's going to happen here is, where it attaches is up here, where you're pushing is down here. What's going to naturally happen? When you push on it, it's going to want to go downward. It's almost unavoidable because this is where it's being supported. This is where you're being pushed. Below that point, it's going to want to go downward, whether you're trying to push it downward or not. If you try to push it straight in, it's going to want to go downward. And my guess is that it's when a user is presetting a station, okay, because right now you can see that the edges of the rectangular hole, they give you some degree of protection there. Actually, you can still push the button down far enough to break it, even with this thing in place. But I think how it usually happens is when a user pulls out a button to set a station, and that exposes the weakest point. You see where it tapers. Let's take this thing off so you can see. See, it tapers down to a really thin thing, and right here is where it always breaks off. And here is a broken off push button to kind of prove that. They always break at pretty much the same place. Okay. Now in the past, customers are pretty well aware that these buttons are no longer available to buy as new parts from Ford or whoever would be selling them. There simply is not a source for purely cosmetic items for electronic stuff, especially stuff that's been out of production for 40, 50 years. You're just not going to find cosmetic parts anywhere except on another unit. Now, with the prices of even non-working classic car radios just going through the roof, probably because of broken controls from poor packing, which limits the number of available radios in the community, that's, I think, what happened here. And so now I'm going to unveil my solution. In the past, customers have sent me, 2 radios. One of them has, one of them might have 4 good buttons. The other one might have 2 good buttons. And the customer will say, well, can you combine these 2 units to make one good unit? And that can be done. But the only problem is, this is a very, very popular model, and the only source for these buttons is on a different model. So it's not at all unusual to pay $400 or even more for even a non-working classic car radio repair, or classic car radio. So what the customer has had to do in the past is actually purchase a non-working unit just to get the buttons. $400 for a few pieces of plastic. So to make matters even worse, we'll take a side view of this button, And you can see there's a little bit of a downward taper at the end of it, you know, to give you something to grip onto. Some of them have a downward taper, some of them have an upward taper, and some of them are straight. So there's actually three different types of buttons that are used on this model, at least three different types of buttons. And so even if a customer is able to supply 5 good buttons, chances are they're not going to be all perfectly matched, because one's going to be off of this model, 2 are going to be off of that model, some will taper up, some will taper down, some will be straight. It's just going to look like absolute crap. So my solution is to just make brand new push buttons. Just make them. I am pretty well known for that. I'm the guy who came out with a universal replacement motor for 8-track machines. I'm the guy who came up with a brighter sounding preamp for converter radios, and now I'm the guy who came up with an idea to replace these plastic push buttons with metal. These are not plastic, these are aluminum. And let's take a look at, you can probably hear it through my headset mic. I'm going to drop these 2 buttons on a desk and you can hear the difference. Here's one of the original plastic push buttons. Drop it on the desk. Okay, now here's one of my metal push buttons. Drop it on the desk. Ah, that's quite a difference. That doesn't sound like something that's ever going to break. So this is what we're going with. And so that's the purpose of this video, is to just show off to unveil my new push button repair job. You no longer have to buy buttons, you no longer have to pay $400 for a unit just to get buttons off of it. I will only replace the entire row for uniformity and just for quality, because all these buttons are prone to breakage. So there's no point in replacing just 1 or 2 broken ones. They really need to all be replaced. At this time, my price to replace all these buttons with this is $149. That's in addition to any other repairs needed. This is just to replace the push buttons with my own aluminum buttons. So let's just make sure that they stand up to the test and that they do what they're supposed to do. Make sure that you can push these puppies out, pull them out, push them in, reset them. Let's go ahead and reset this middle button to about 14. Okay, I'm going to pull it out to set it, and make sure that it goes to 14 when we press the middle button, and it does. So that's pretty much what I've done here in a nutshell. That's the only purpose of this particular video, was to show off my new innovative tuner push button fix, and that can be done on any type of unit that has this type of push button. Generally, you're looking for units that have the 5 push buttons above the tuning dial, and it's generally going to be an AM 8-track unit. So that was it. I'm just here to sell my new push button designs. I see I bored my cat to death. She's now just kind of hanging out. She's given up on getting any attention from me for a while. So say hello to Einie, and thank you very much for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time.